All right, everyone, and we are back. Gabe and I have just watched Avatar, and I finished a whole bowl of popcorn. It was amazing. And sitting down and watching a movie. Before we get into this spoiler discussion, I do want to say just that. This is a spoiler discussion. So, if you have not seen Avatar, this is your opportunity to pause this podcast, go watch Avatar, come back, and listen to all the juicy details. Without any further ado, I just want to jump right into this. And the first thing, Gabe, that I want to say is I was wrong on one very important thing that I said, let's take a look and see about. There are definitely interactions between humans and the Na'vi throughout this movie.
I was watching out for those too.
First one happens in the first 15 minutes of the movie.
Yep.
So I was way off on that.
There was another one. It was toward the end when Neytiri is holding Jake right after that big boss battle with Quaritch.
Is that the one that you were talking about?
That's the one I was talking about.
I'd completely forgotten about that scene. There were several scenes in here I'd completely forgotten about.
And I only remembered that scene in particular because when I first saw it, I was like, ooh, that does not look good.
It was odd, when he's trying to put he's trying to figure out where the edge of her face is with his human hand.
Yep.
But let's go ahead and we'll just start talking about the movie. Overall thoughts, Gabe? What'd you think?
I think the movie holds up fine for today. I don't think the special effects do. I didn't think they would.
Really?
It just feels way too cartoony. It feels like I'm watching The Hobbit, and I had a whole lot of problems with those movies too. Special effects, almost exclusively special effects, for my biggest issue. But I don't really buy into the whole special effects of Avatar anymore. They just feel very fake and artificial. I mean, that is special effects, but there's a way to do it well and a way that it's not so well. It's most ways you don't do it so well. But yeah, for the most part, I don't think the special effects hold up today.
So I have a completely different opinion than you for the most part. I think the special effects held up really well. There were a few shots and few scenes where Uncanny Valley was definitely there. That scene you pointed out, I do agree, where she's holding him and Jake Sully's body, and he actually reaches up and touches her and everything, and that you could definitely tell the CGI in that. There are also several scenes you could very much tell that motion capture was still an extremely new thing. I mean, they've been doing motion capture for movies ever since, well before this. Two Towers used motion capture for Gollum. So, and that was 2003, 2004?
2002.
2002. Yes, you're right, 2002, you're right. So they had several years of being able to perfect it, and I actually do think the motion capture was done very well in this movie. There were a few times, though, that my biggest complaint with the Na'vi, their mouths bothered me. They didn't, when they were talking, I didn't buy that was an actual living being, a humanoid's mouth saying those things. They just, the eyes were really good. The hair looked almost real to me. The body, as they're moving around in this world, looked pretty dang good. Just to me, the mouths kind of bothered me, depending on what they were saying. And some of the animals that they made, that they were fighting, were very, very smooth and clean. They weren't roughed up. They didn't look like they were made of real life armor.
And you see, that's what I mean by the special effects don't hold up to me, because almost everything looks smooth.
There's a lot of smoothness.
It looks unrealistically smooth. The animals do not. The panther animal in particular, one.
That's my point.
That one. I mean, the trees, they look good. But if you find a way to mess up trees, I mean, you need to find a new line of work. But
very much.
Yeah. What I mean by special effects on hold up is that things don't look like they should.
But do you think the Na'vi were done well?
I think the Na'vi were done well. Mouths aside, I do think the facial expressions were very, very good. And the eyes in particular, those were also very well done.
Now, here's what I do want to say, and I'll go ahead and... Normally, the way that we do this is we'll talk about all the goods and we talk about all the bads, but we're talking about special effects right now at the moment, and my biggest complaint about this movie does kind of branch off from special effects, so I want to go ahead and get into that just because this was a huge problem to me in this movie, is James Cameron spent so much time, I think... I mean, he had just created and revolutionized a new type of technology in his 3D. No other film had done what he was about to do. Nothing was the 3D had never been done as detailed as what he was going to do in this movie. And his company had developed brand new technology never used before in the history of filmmaking, and this was the first time. And to me, that was so apparent watching this movie. It was almost like he was more proud of his technological achievements than he was at making a good movie. Because I think this movie is so long. Its runtime is 2 hours.
240, right?
240, yeah. And it was so long, and so much of the movie, I kid you not, so much of the movie could have been cut out just because we're just getting reactions of characters looking around at their surroundings and going, whoa. And then just looking at their third glow-in-the-dark tree, their fifth lizard that flies around. You know, how many times do we have to see those dandelion things, swooping in? And every time, I mean, I understand it. They've meant it to be they said that it's a deity's spirit. So the first time you see it, yeah, absolutely, wow, our deity is showing up. And I mean, if God just kind of popped up in front of me in front of a dandelion, as a dandelion thing, I'd be a little like, whoa, cool too. But it happens so much in the movie that I start getting an impression that this has to be a regular occurrence. Why is every character out, including, I mean, the human people aside, but even just the regular Na'vi, were every time something happened in their normal world that they're in, they have to stop and react to it because James Cameron feels that that's how the audience should feel about looking at this technology that he's created. I don't know. Am I making too much out of this, man?
No, honestly, I thought the movie dragged. Toward like the midway point, and which, by the way, yes, Disney did cut out that sex scene, and that's not cool.
They left more in it than I thought they were going to.
You were censoring artisanship.
Okay, you and I are going to have a very different opinion on this, and that's...
Okay, the reason why that is wrong is because it's censoring artisanship. And when you censor that, it sets a precedent for Disney and companies as a whole that if you put something in your movie that we do not like, we will not put that in our streaming service.
Okay. How is that any different than a movie company putting their film on TNT and bleeping out, the curse words? Or changing them to something else, which everyone's been okay with for years?
I suppose the reason why that's wrong is because you're putting that on cable television, whereas on a streaming site, people are paying for that. You know what you're getting into when you watch the movie.
Yeah, but people pay for their services, but they also pay for their TV to come into their home. Unless you're getting TV over, like the... if you've got a antenna in your house to pick up public TV waves... Yeah, that stuff gets censored all the time, and that's free television. But if you're paying for a cable package or a satellite bundle, you're paying for that regardless. So that's the same as having a subscription to a streaming service, I'd say. And also, this is now Disney's movie. They can do whatever they want to it. James Cameron doesn't own the rights to this thing. Disney does. Disney, or at the time, Fox, hired James Cameron to create a product. This would be the same as if I hired a painter to paint a product for me. And then the product was painted by the artist. James Cameron made the movie, and then was delivered to Fox at the time or in this analogy, the painter delivered to me a painting to me, and I said, I am happy with this product, I'm good. And now I sell that later. I sell this painting to Disney later on, Avatar. Now, the owner of that painting is in sole possession of it. That is theirs to do whatever they want with it. And then Disney decided, oh, we want to cut out the naughty bits a little bit. I don't have a problem with that, personally.
As somebody who does create, I feel that if something I did offended somebody and they felt the need to hack it out, that would ruffle my feathers a bit. I can understand the whole it's a product and it belongs to somebody else now, but at the same time, you are still hacking into that person's vision of what the movie should be. And yes, filmmaking is a business, but at the same time, at the end of the day, that business is made up by people who have a collective vision. And for Disney to come in 10, 11 years later for this movie and to censor certain parts that they don't like. And again, it's just the one part. But I would bet you, I haven't seen it on Disney Plus, but I would bet you if I went to see Iron Man on Disney Plus, I would not see his scene with the woman cut out. So
probably not, but here's the thing: is the scene that you're referencing in Iron Man was no more graphic than what was shown in the Avatar. They still have that scene. They're still, getting hot and heavy, and talking about having mated together. So I suppose my point with that is, if it's the same thing, why are you cutting one thing out of one product but not the other? They went as far as each movie does. Avatar didn't take it to that next step that you see in the original theatrical cut, where they tie tubes, bond, which is still to me an odd thing to cut out. It's not like it's not human reproductive process. So the reason why they cut it out in the first place to me is odd, but they did, and I don't have a problem with it. But I think we're getting a little bit off track here. We're supposed to be talking about whether or not we like the movie or not. We're debating a 3 to 4 extra seconds that they may have cut out of the movie after we just complained that the movie was too long. Just kidding. Keep going. So we'll get back on track. Another thing that bothered me. Hey there, this is Kylan, host of The Streaming Block. If you'd like to listen to the full episode, we've got it available on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, and many other places where podcasts can be found. You can find links to them in the description of this video. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at The Streaming Block. We'd love to chat with you guys about your favorite movies and get recommendations about future movies we could talk about on this show. We'd love to hear from you. Keep being awesome. Stream on.